All right. Well, welcome to a special Tuesday edition of the Sports Guys. Really glad you're here this week with us. And how you doing, Robbie?
Doing great. Real good.
Good,
Thanks.
man. So we wanted to bring this episode to you guys on Tuesday night this week because tomorrow night is the NBA draft 2024. The way they have it structured this year is Wednesday night is the first round of the NBA draft, and you see the top 10 picks behind me right now. Starts off with the Hawks. They won the lottery. And then Thursday night is round 2 of the NBA draft. So that's the way that they've decided to structure it this year. And so it'll be really interesting to see what happens. You know, all these teams know pretty well now in the off season, now that they finished the season a little while ago, you know, what their major needs are, where they can improve. And it really does seem like the NBA game is changing a lot the last 2 seasons. I don't know how you feel about it, Robbie, but it seems like the NBA goes in big waves. You have the decades where the big men dominated. You had the Olajuwons and the Sampsons and all those kind of guys. Then you had periods where it was more the 6'6", 6'7", 6'8" type guys, the mid guys. Then you had the era of Stephon Curry, who brought the three-pointer into the NBA. And we've really been kind of in that mode for about 10 years where teams are going small ball, they're going small lineup. They're having all 5 guys able to shoot the three. And they kind of gave up on length. At least that's how it seemed to me. And then, as we said in our March episode where we talked about the center position coming back to college basketball, it really seems like the center position and this power forward position is coming back. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think they're expanding their emphasis on three-point shooting to involve the center is really what I would say. Instead of the center just automatically being out of the play and he's in there for rebounding, I think they're really trying to get everybody involved in getting to the three-point line and getting shots up. And so that's a skill that is extremely coveted in the NBA now, is a center who can shoot threes, because it just gives you a mismatch where people can't switch out fast enough. And the big man isn't going to switch out because you could pump fake and go right to the hole and nobody's going to stop a 7-1 guy coming down the lane. But I do think there's a little bit of a shift towards trying to bring back other ways of scoring than just doing step back threes and launching from all over the place.
You just nailed it. I mean, for me, you and I struggle every year watching Virginia's offense when they go through the 5-10 minute periods where they can't score a bucket. And we always just pull our hair out because they never have an inside game. And that happens in the NBA too. There's many nights where these teams, even with great players, go through long stretches where they can't hit a shot. And so it seems like the reason the center and the power forward's coming back is not only should they be able to shoot, but you want a guy who can drive and slash and get to the rim.
And rebound.
And rebound and score at the rim. And so they want versatile players that can play defense, can rebound, can slash, and can shoot threes. They want them to be able to do all 4, essentially. And that's very different from even a couple of years ago when everyone was trying to be the Golden State Warriors.
Well, this is pretty clear with the way there's been a shift towards international players. You know, Gino Auriemma said it best. He said the reason why foreign players are being coveted is because they put a different emphasis than American players, than American coaches, I should say. American coaches want to make the players happy and give them what they want, which is, what does a player want in American basketball development? They want games. They want to shine in games. They want as many games as possible. In Europe, it's the opposite. So in Europe, they'll have 4 practices a week and 1 game. In the American high school leagues, they will have 1 practice a week and 3 or 4 games. And so it's not an accident that the European players are developing fundamentals. It doesn't matter if you're a center or a small guard. You're going to learn how to dribble the ball. You're going to learn how to do every kind of crossover, shooting from outside, hit your free throws. These are all emphasized in practice in Europe, much more than in America. We've gotten away from that. And the reason is because these kids are so sought after that can fly above the rim, and they're clearly going to NBA. They can dictate if if you're my club coach and you don't give me what I want, I'll go to another club. And so those coaches kind of give in and give up their philosophies. So over a couple generations now, the USA development has moved away from fundamentals and towards athleticism, high flying dunking. And we spent a lot of time on shooting the three. But in Europe, the big men bring the ball up. The big men can do everything. And so
Look at what Jokic. I mean, no one's ever seen anything like Jokic. I mean, he leads the fast break at 7-2.
We're not going to produce a Jokic in America in the current system. It's just not going to happen. So basically, it's not a surprise now that so many of these top picks are 7-foot Europeans because they can hit the three. They have all the fundamentals and all the skills, and they're plug and play. They're ready to go. Now, Wembanyama is a little thin. He's got to bulk up a little, but he was ready for the NBA even at that size. So
he was. What's interesting about Wembanyama and those European players like you talked about, they can jack the three and hit a high percentage. They can also fake the three and go right by you and jam the ball down.
They can drive it.
And
can
no
shoot
one
it.
can block it. No one can block it. I mean, they're Wembanyama was dunking from the foul line and stuff. So
yeah.
And he can also do the finger roll from way out. So these guys, they're just incredibly hard to defend. Even the guys who are the small and big forwards who aren't centers, who are European players like Doncic. I mean, you're looking at a guy who's 6'7". He's virtually unstoppable. He either hits threes on you, or if you come out and guard him, he goes right by you, or he backs into you and gets his little 10-footer. There's nothing you can do about it. And so this is where the NBA is going. It's really interesting what you said, what you did, and I agree with you. And that is that the fundamentals of American basketball are reward athleticism, reward the slasher, reward the dunker, reward the corner three-point shooter, and but not the versatile all-around player who can do all four areas. And that's really sad to see.
Yep, because they don't get enough practice. They just play games. Everything's a pickup game. Everything's a game, ready to go. And they don't work on fundamentals. So it is a little sad to see. I think that's a lot of what the G League does. They work on fundamentals, but I think it's a little too late once you hit the G League. You already have to have your fundamentals. So they are still developing there, but at the end of the day, that's your shot, is to get a little bit better in the G League and get up to the big league. But it's not surprising to me that all these Europeans are getting picked in the top 10 because it fits the modern NBA game. And rebounding is so important. When you're shooting outside, your percentage is lower, so you're going to have more balls coming off the rim. Now, granted, little guys got to get more involved when they're shooting threes because the ball tends to rebound out further. So, but if you're a 7'4" Edie or a 7'1" Wembanyama or whatever, how tall is Wembanyama?
7'1".
7'1".
Oh no, he might be 7'4". I'm not sure.
Let's look that up. So when you're tall like that, you can get up and get that rebound that's popping out further because you can just get up that high and you're already there. You can't teach height, so it's pretty cool. I like watching Jokic. That's pretty cool brand of basketball.
I think it is too.
I'm a little exhausted from all this like step back threes all the time. That's your whole offense. ISO and step back threes. I like when there's plays. I like when there's everything. I love a 3-pointer. I love alley-oop dunking. I love drive and dish. There's a lot of steps in basketball that I enjoy, and I like seeing it. I think the good teams still play well, and the bad teams play a garbage brand of basketball, basically.
Completely
They
agree.
have 1 star, 2 stars. They get the ball every time down the court. They're launching threes that aren't open, and it's a really nauseating style of basketball. It's very boring, actually.
I just looked it up. Wemby's 7'4", so he's
7'4". Okay, I knew 7'1" didn't sound right.
He's 7'4" and he plays like a small forward. I mean, it's pretty incredible. I mean, you look at like all the guys we're about to go through in this mock draft review. You've got about half of them are European, half of them are 18, 19 years old. They're young. Some of them don't have all the skills yet. I mean, they're good and they have a lot of potential. But you mentioned in a conversation you and I had earlier today about NBA players have gotten into a new environment where they don't have to really prove themselves in college anymore. In the
Yeah.
old days, the pro teams wanted a guy who had 3 or 4 years experience. Now they're drafting these 18, 19-year-old kids who have really raw skills, and they're going to bring them in and they're going to try to make them good within, first 3 or 4 years by really good coaching.
Yeah, they're starting to build all contracts around potential of the future instead of what have you done. So I think the NFL might have started this. I'm sure it started somewhere else, but the NFL noticeably started paying quarterbacks for what they could become. And I used in our conversation earlier the example of Justin Herbert. I like Justin Herbert. I'm a fan, but why is he making $50 million or whatever based on what he's done? Like nothing. Like he's done almost nothing, but he's shown flashes and there's potential. So he's getting paid on potential. And Deion Sanders talked about this, that a lot of pro sports are really messing up by paying people just on potential instead of rewarding a good, healthy season where you were at the top in scoring. That's when people should get paid, and we're really
Well,
focused on paying potential. And it's very evident in this draft. All these 18-year-olds, it's not what they've done, it's what they might become. This might become the next Jordan. This might become the next Jokic. This might become the next, whatever. And
LeBron, they got at
might
18
be the
years old.
next LeBron.
Mm-hmm.
Might be the next, whatever player, amazing player, input whatever player you want. And it's all about hoping. It's not a very smart business decision.
Well, I would
But
highly encourage people go watch our March Madness preview episode. It was really kind of on point, and we're seeing this happen in the NBA now, where essentially the center position is back. It's back in a little bit of a different way because they want versatile centers, not like the old centers that couldn't even move. Today, they want the versatile center who can shoot, can rebound, can block shots, can play defense, can facilitate, can set the
post up
screens.
also. Posting
Exactly.
up
And post
hasn't
up.
completely gone away, but it has
Right.
mostly gone away.
Actually, that's not completely true. I see it coming back more and more. I think the teams are
You know
really
who
starting
posts
to
up a
see.
lot? You know who posts up a lot is 3s and 4s
Yeah.
for some reason.
If you watch the way the Celtics just won the NBA championship, an old school style of ball.
But there was also a
And
special
it was so
quality
fun to watch because you're
that
not
was.
seeing Jaylen Brown and all these great players on that team just jack the ball up from three. They're moving the ball. The
Yeah.
ball was moving and moving and
In
moving.
fact, when they were shooting 3s, I thought they looked pedestrian and not very good. When they moved the ball around better is when they opened up their leads.
Mm-hmm.
When they were just launching 3s, I thought Boston looked real mediocre.
You'd have the ball go. You'd have the ball go from Jason Tatum to Jaylen Brown to Drew Holiday to Al Horford, then back to Jason Tatum. It was just moving so fast
it was hard to
that
defend.
they always find the open player, and they're shooting.
And
little
let's face it,
12-footer.
Dallas's defense was not good enough to take on Boston. But I think that the key to the Boston series and Boston's domination was their long guards. They had really tall guards that were physical, athletic. I think that's the future. I think that the era of the 5'10", 6-foot guard is over. Like people want 6'6". You want 6'6" guards who are athletic, who can shoot, who can juke and dish, and
So what are you going to
Magic
see?
Johnson is what they're looking for now all the time.
So what are you going to see when we show you these picks that are coming up in this mock draft? What you're going to see is you're going to see tall 6'11", 7-foot type guys who are very versatile, who can slash and shoot and play defense. And then you're going to also see guards that are 6'5", 6'6", 6'7". These are really long guards that are a nightmare for a short guard to try to get past. And they're just great defenders, on-ball defenders. And they can also slash. They can go to the cup themselves. So that's the NBA game. That's how it's morphing. This is very much away from the Golden State model.
And I think part of that is think about the body type that you have. When you're a lanky but muscular guard, you can haul up and down the floor every night for 200 games or whatever it is.
Yep.
and not wear yourself out within 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
It's not easy to haul up and down a heavy frame, a Shaquille O'Neal size frame. Uh, they're getting load managed a lot. Like they're getting playing a quarter, sitting a quarter, or 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there, because there's no chance at that size they're going to be able to. So the bigger your frame, the harder it's going to be to really give you a lot of minutes. So tall, lanky, and athletic is perfect for the NBA, going up and down the floor every night for 200 games
So,
with minimal load management.
so what's been the problem with Zion during his NBA career so far? Injuries, mostly leg
Weight,
injuries. Right? He's
weight.
too heavy. He's too heavy.
He's too heavy.
Joel Embiid is a great player, but he has lots of leg injuries, same kind of thing. So they have to do load management. Yeah. He's only 28 years old, so you have that situation. You have Rudy Gobert. You have all these guys that are NBA that have a lot of experience and are good centers, but they miss about half the games because they can't hang. It's just weight. They have too much weight.
It's
Whereas
so
I look
many
at
games.
Wemby. Wemby's too thin, right? But
yeah, but not by much.
Not by much.
You
He's going to
need
settle
to put
into
a
his
little
body.
on him, but he needs to stay slight so that he can carry that weight up and down the floor and not start having knee problems 1 year from now.
I mean, Jokic runs up and down the floor like a point guard. I mean, I don't know how he does it. Because he's a big guy, but
I love it. I hope his career is long, but he's pretty big. Like, I don't know if he's destined to be in this league 15 years from now.
So the prototype's probably somewhere in between Jokic and Wemby. I mean, somewhere
if you look on the bench of a lot of NBA teams, you'll see a lot of aging centers who are 35, but still able to stay in the league because they can help. But they're not running up and down every night. They just can't. Their bodies can't do it.
Al Horford, he's had a long career.
Just so many. You'll usually see the center can really stay in the league a long time. Mm-hmm. But they can't play a lot of minutes because their body just can't do it anymore. So they all have knee braces on. They're all, load managed down to 20% of the game or less.
That's right.
But, it's interesting.
Well, let's take a look at this mock draft. We're going to get your reaction, get my reaction, and just talk it through. All right, so this is from The Ringer. This is a magazine we've looked at before. They always have some pretty good articles. This one's the 2024 NBA Draft Guide, written by a guy named Kevin O'Connor, and he's an NBA analyst. And so what we're going to do, you can see this website's pretty cool. It has his mock draft we're about to go through here. It has his big board if you want to look up this article online yourself, or we'll put it in the comments down below. The team needs are here as well, and then the draft grades. He's going to actually give draft grades after the draft's over this week. But he's got on his number one on his board this Frenchman, Zachary Rissachet, from France. He's 19 years old, 6'9". His main thing that he does is he's very connective piece on offense. He's essentially like a playmaker who's kind of like a 3 or a 4. He's a catch and shoot threat. So he's a big man, but he can really shoot. He can play 3 out of the 5 positions. He's a movement shooter. And they're saying he shades of Harrison Barnes and Tobias Harris. So this is kind of the prototypical 3 or 4 on the floor that Atlanta thinks that they need to join Trae Young. Any thoughts about this guy and about this frame that he's got?
Yeah, so look, his body type is exactly what I was talking about. Slight, but definitely has muscle. As he ages, 19-year-old men are still filling out. He's going to fill out some. He will be able to sustain the growth and not probably have the knee problems that a big center would, the carrying too much weight. Also, he's a perfect example of the European model of development.
Exactly.
At 19 years old, he's going to the NBA potentially first because he has all the skills. He's got a body type that can gain some weight and still not be in a bad place. And he's kind of the perfect NBA prototype, catch and shoot, positional versatility, and movement shooter. Anytime you have shooter all over the place like that, NBA is salivating.
This was really remarkable. He shot 48.2% of his threes over his first 34 games as a pro, and he's playing in the French Pro League. And he gets on these huge hot streaks where he can be a big-time scorer. And he can shoot from the corner. He can shoot from out front. He can backpedal into threes. He can move forward and sidestep into threes. So he's just ready to go. I mean, he's going to score 25 a night, from day one.
Tom, what were we doing at 19 years old?
I know. But what's amazing is these guys, they've got 3 paths to the NBA when they're 18 years old. They can go play for a year in Europe or Australia or somewhere like that.
Yeah.
They can go into the G League for a year. The NBA now allows that. So you can go into the G League for a year, or you can go play 1 year at a college. So those are basically your 3 paths, and then you can enter the draft at 19. So you'll see throughout this draft mock that we're looking at here, these guys take all different paths to get here. This guy, of course, is in the French League for a year. So we talked about his pluses. Some of his minuses are struggling to score at the rim, which is interesting to me that he's got to work on his slashing. I think he'll get there. This guy's incredibly athletic. He's all over the court. But if that's the only thing he's got to work on, then and he's a great passer, great decision maker, long arm defender. So they'll get that with him with the right coaching. Let's go on to number 2, Alex Sarr. This is the guy Atlanta apparently is looking at as well. They're trying to decide between these two. Looks like they're going to go with Risache, but if they don't, they will go with Alex Sarr, another Frenchman. He's 19, currently playing in Australia with the Perth Wildcats. He is 6'11.8. He's basically 7 feet. He's a sky-scraping wing. So they literally are thinking about playing him at the 3 or the 4. So he's that good of an athlete. He's kind of like a Nick Claxton or a Jaren Jackson Jr., both of whom are all pros. He's very good.
7 foot wingspan.
He's a 7'3" on the NBA court. It's really incredible. The Washington Wizards can plug him right in on day one and start him. He's an on-ball defender, great shot blocker, positional versatility. They can play him at different positions. And apparently he's a hustler just from the opening gun of the game all the way to the end. He's on the ground getting 50-50 balls. He's just one of those guys who's a dream for a coach. He's just really, really into the game. Also an athletic finisher at the rim. What are your thoughts about this guy?
I think he's the best player.
I do too.
He's got the most skills and heart. You can't teach somebody to be motivated,
And he has a 7'4" wingspan. I mean, you talked about what the prototypical body is for the NBA.
Yeah. Athletic, slender, strong. Yep.
He's not too big, so he's not going to have the Zion problem. At least we don't think. So yeah,
Most likely not.
And he's improving in his 3-point shooting. That's one area they say he does need to improve, but he's improving. He's only 19 years old. Some of his minuses was that he currently is shooting a lot of jumpers and not making as many as they would like. And so that's really his one downside is jump shooting.
I think jump shooting is the kind of thing that does improve with practice. So it is something you can teach. Height you can't teach, speed you can't teach. A lot of intuitive skills you can't teach, but jump shot you can. It doesn't work for everybody, but if you do 3,000 shots a day, you'll get better.
I have to think that the reason they're hesitating on not taking him at number 1, even though I think I would, is because of the jump shooting. NBA is such a scoring league now.
Probably.
That must be the reason that he's dropping. But the Wizards are going to get a heck of a player, I'll tell you. Come down to number 3, Mr. Reed Shepherd. This is the shortest guy in the first round. He's 6'1", almost 6'2", and is just a standard prototypical point guard, which is what Houston needs. The Rockets really are on the uptick. They actually almost made the play-in tournament this past year. So they had a really abysmal couple of years, but finally are on the upswing. And if they can get this stud point guard, which looks like they're going to at number 3, Reed Shepherd. He's an exceptional shooter. He's a gritty defender, great playmaker, catch and shoot threat, has a really good feel for the game, got that dog in him, and does the off-ball defense really well. What are your thoughts about Reed Shepherd?
I think he's a great future leader. He can learn from Van Fleet. and company. It's a good team that he's going to. I think he's a very good shooter.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's very valuable in the NBA. Of course, 6'1" is tough when you're doing switching defenses. You can't just
Mm-hmm.
have him shift over and take a 4 or a 3.
Mm-hmm.
So that's limiting. I think his defense will be limited,
A little
but
bit, but it's interesting.
his off-ball defense can make up for it. So
It's interesting in his pluses, though. It says he might be small, but he makes a massive defensive impact because he has
yeah,
incredible instincts and quick, active hands. Apparently, he causes a lot
no
of
question.
steals. So, he
I
reminds me
think his defense is superior for his size and superior for where he's coming from. We have to watch and see if it can translate, and it probably
Mhm.
should, but
It says
if not, he's limited.
Shades of Steve Nash and Derek White, and so if he can have that kind of career, then this is going to be a heck of a player for the
Yeah,
Rocket.
yeah.
Who was the other guard you mentioned that he reminded you of?
Mark Price.
Oh, Mark Price, yeah, Mark Price. Yeah, I think he'll be a heck of a point guard. That's what they need is point guard. Coming down to number 4, Matas Buzelis, who's right now playing in the G League with the Ignite group or Ignite team, I guess. Of course, last year Wemby went at number 1 to the Spurs. They did improve a little bit, but not much. They still have a lot of needs, and so they're talking about getting this guy who's a 6'9" point forward. They're calling him a point forward, which means that, yes, they'll play him at the 3 or the 4, but he can bring the ball up. He can run the break. He's a distributor. He can shoot threes at a reliable level. He just has a great feel for the game. He's a really good defender and what they call a great spacer, meaning that he's going to be one of those guys who facilitates the ball moving and moving and moving. So probably going to get a lot of assists in the NBA as well. They've got him compared to Franz Wagner or Lamar Odom. What are your thoughts about this guy pairing him up with Wemby?
I think it's a good pick. He's young. He's a good size. I think he's a good defender.
You know who
He
he
can help
Reminds me a little bit of Austin Reeves in Los Angeles. He's that kind of player who's been really a nice 2 or 3 to LeBron and AD. So I think they just keep.
I think the Spurs organization does well when they get talented players. They seem to just quietly develop them and get the most out of them. Let them grow into themselves, and instead of trying to force them to be something they're not yet.
You notice he's under 200 pounds, and so we talked about that prototypical body type for the NBA. He's really got it. He's 6'9", 197.
But at 6'9", you'd want him to be 215, 220.
Probably, yeah. He'll put on some muscle, right? And he'll get in the weight room.
Yeah, but you don't want him to be 300.
Right. There is a note here. It's interesting. The Spurs may, since they have the 4th and the 8th pick, they have 2 picks in the lottery this year. They may try to package both of them and move up into that top 3 spots. And they might try to, swing for the fences and go get one of those really top guys. So definitely watch for that tomorrow night to see if the Spurs try to make a move. There's only a couple of trades expected, and that might be one of them. I'm not sure I'd do that. I think I'd keep the 4 and the 8.
Get more players. So you just get stacked, and then when you get your 1 or 2 stars going forward, they have a lot of help.
That's the way I feel about it too. So the worst team in the Eastern Conference was the Detroit Pistons. So they have a lot of needs. And apparently they're targeting Cody Williams, who was a freshman at Colorado, only played 1 season. He's very raw. He's probably the most raw of all the players that are going to go in the lottery. He has a tremendous feel for the game. His shot is coming along, but is not there yet. He's a slasher. He's very instinctive around the rim. A lot of his finishing's at the rim. Apparently a very good rebounder. They really like his rebounding capabilities. He's also a facilitator. He's unselfish with the ball. So he's 6'7", so he's essentially going to play kind of the 3 or maybe the 2 or the 3 in the NBA. But shades of Jalen Rose with this guy, Cody Williams. Any thoughts?
Big playmaker, a lot of potential. but he's a project, I think. And
Yeah.
so I think for a team that has so many needs, I think I'd be going with more finished products. But
I think me too, but if they're going to draft him, they have to realize that he probably should have stayed another year at Colorado, number one. Number two, he probably should spend this upcoming year in the G League in the
yeah,
Detroit Pistons farm system. That's probably
but
what I'd
why
do.
would you do that? You know, if you
Because I
if
want
you
him
have
to
desperate
start.
needs,
Because I want him to start,
yeah. But there's
But
other starters.
the problem is the Detroit Pistons don't have anybody, so they're going to end up starting this guy.
That's right, and
This
that's
is,
what you want to avoid.
yeah, I know. I don't know. I like him, but I think he's a project, like you said. There's no doubt
It's
about
not
it.
that he's being taken too high. He's being taken by the wrong team.
One thing I
That,
mentioned here is he's the younger brother of lottery pick Jalen Williams, who's with the Thunder, and Jalen Williams was one of the main core reasons that the Thunder went all the way very deep on the West Coast side of the NBA. And he's also taller than his other brother. So, they have a lot of hope that because his brother has developed so well that he will as well.
yeah, it's probably a
They did
decent gamble.
They did say that he was a below the rim leaper without elite burst, and that he was an underwhelming 3-point shooter. So he's got a lot of areas of his game he really needs to work on. So we'll see how it goes. Number 6, we've got Stephon Castle going to my Hornets. This would be a dream if this actually happened. I'm not sure if it will, because there's rumors that the Hornets might trade down to number 9 with Memphis, who really covet this guy. Apparently, they want Stephon Castle to come in and be their point guard with their other pieces that they already have in place. But obviously, if he did go to Charlotte, he is an incredible playmaker. They could play him at the 1 or the 2. He's a jumbo-sized guard. He's essentially 6'6". He's got dog in him. He's got hustle. He's a great defender, feel for the game. He was their top assist man for the national championship team. You could have LaMelo Ball play off ball, which he likes to do sometimes. And of course, Brandon Miller plays the 3. So you can have quite a nucleus coming for the future for the Hornets. What are your thoughts about this guy who's a
I
national
like
champion?
that pick. I hope they pick him.
Me too.
I think the prototypical NBA champions are going to be long guards and more than 2 3-point shooting options. I think it would be very hard to defend him and LaMelo Ball on the court.
And Brandon Miller.
And then Brandon Miller, and keep adding players. It's going to be not very long from now when the Hornets are a formidable force.
I agree.
I hope they take him.
Absolutely agree. They got him shades of Andre Iguodala. I just think you mentioned a really good point earlier in the program, and that was that, this is the prototypical guard in the NBA going forward. 6'5", 6'6",
Good defenders.
Good defender, can handle the ball.
So you can switch off and take a 2 or 3 or 4 that are rotating over, and you don't get swallowed eaten alive. You may not be able to take a center, but in defensive rotation, you can take anybody coming around the corner, coming around the pick. And that 6'6" guy can kind of hang with almost anybody except for a center.
Some of his pluses are he's a high field playmaker who controls tempo by playing at his own pace. And he's really good at changing up rhythm. Sometimes he likes to run, and sometimes he likes to get into the half-court sets. So, but he makes a lot of really great assists by doing skip passes and kickouts and backdoor feeds. And he's just one of those great point guards. I see him with the ball in his hand every game. He can also catch fire as a shooter sometimes, although his jumper is hit and miss sometimes. So I think if there's anywhere in his game he's got to work on, is his shooting becoming more consistent.
Man, if I have an opportunity, I'm taking a UConn player. They kind of remind me of, what they remind me of? LSU wide receivers. Just they're ready to go. Yep,
you're right. They're NBA ready.
Yeah.
Well,
they're going to make an impact.
Speaking of Connecticut players, Donovan Clingan, they've got him going number 7, the next pick. So 2 Connecticut in a row. This one to the Portland Trail Blazers. Of course, he has massive interior presence. He stands 7'2". He's a really great shot blocker, interior scoring. off-ball defense, rebounding. He's actually one of those centers that's actually good at switching off and covering somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
So that really gives him a
he's
great.
got good feet.
Got good feet. He can really move. He can also run the floor, unlike most centers. He can run the floor on the break and dunk it down and stuff like that. So they're saying shades of Rudy Gobert or Marc Gasol. So he's like a versatile center, basically. What are your thoughts about Klingon?
So I love this player. In fact, that was one of my favorite matchups in the NCAA finals was him against Edey.
Yeah.
And I think Klingon definitely held his own. There were times where Edey was getting his and he was eating, but he was feeding, so to speak. But I think Klingon definitely held his own. But he can switch off, and he's super athletic. I personally think Edey's just a little bit better, but I think Klingon's going to have a really nice career in the NBA.
He will.
I think he should go a little bit lower, but I would definitely take him in the first round, no question.
And you mentioned Connecticut players are just NBA ready, you know?
Yeah, that's right.
You know,
so me personally, I would take Edey above him, but only barely.
What's interesting is this note that the Blazers already traded for DeAndre Ayton, who used to be with the Phoenix Suns. Mm-hmm. So they're going to have this massive front court of Ayton and Klingon. I mean, incredible. You know, Ayton is not quite as versatile.
Klingon's in there more for his defense.
Yeah. Well, defense, and he can run the floor. I mean, if you want to run the ball, then Ayton's.
Yeah, that's true. If you want to run and gun, he can get down there.
Yeah, he can.
Whereas I think those days are over for Ayton a little bit.
I think so too. Yeah, Ayton's got the knee problems that a lot of the real tall centers do.
A lot of the big guys just can't do it, not for very long.
That's right. So
he'll be on an NBA squad for a long time, sitting on that bench. You watch.
So some of his pluses: intimidating rim protector with a 7'7" wingspan, and he can block shots without even leaving his feet.
Yeah, incredible. He's a good shot blocker.
Apparently, he not only blocks a lot of shots, but he affects a lot of shots. Like guys will come in who are trying to get to the rim, and then they have to change their shot because he's so imposing.
Yeah.
So yeah,
what he does is an incredibly intimidating shot block, and then for the whole next quarter, people are rethinking going in there. So
he's also
that's really hard to put stats on.
He's also the number one rebounder in this class, and nobody talks about rebounding, but that's huge. I mean, if this guy picks up 15, 20 rebounds a night.
In fact, it's barely in any of these slides, and I think it's one of the most important things to get you to the NBA because it just gets you it shuts down the other team's possession, and it gives you extra shots on your possession. And so rebounding is crucial.
I think he needs to beef up a little bit in the weight room too. I know he's already at 282 in weight. That's pretty heavy, but
that's not bad.
I think he's going to need to build some guns. He's going to need it because it's a very physical game he's coming into.
Probably.
We'll see. Number 8, we got Devin Carter. He was a junior last year at Providence. Carter's one of the draft's best perimeter defenders. He's an on-ball and off-ball defender. So pairing him with Wemby, if they do keep the 4 and the 8, this would be another Spurs pick as they're building their future playoff team. So he could do a lot of the pick and roll defending and pick and roll offense with Wemby, which would be really cool to watch. You can see some of his positive attributes here. Hustle, got that dog, crafty finisher at the rim, positional versatility. He's 6'3", so he's a little undersized compared to some of the guards, but you need those really dog defensive defenders at the guard position today. What are your thoughts about this guy?
I love the hustle. I think that'll get you to a nice career in the NBA. I like him. I think he's the kind of role player. He's being picked pretty high, but I think he'll settle into a nice role position where he'll end up on a team that is relevant for a long time.
What's interesting is shades of Drew Holiday. Well, Drew Holiday.
I think that's a great comparison, Drew Holiday.
It is. And Drew Holiday, of course, just won an NBA ring, and he was the third guard on that team and wasn't asked to do anything but be the third guard on that team. But he was a huge reason that they won the championship because he's just one of those. he's not only great on the ball, but he's great as a defender. He's just like a bother all the time. And yeah, he can be a real nice piece for the Spurs going forward.
Yep.
Number 9, we got Ron Holland coming out of the G League Ignite group, Memphis Grizzlies. So this is the team that if the Hornets do trade with and trade down from 6, they're thinking that the Grizzlies will try to trade up into 6 to go get Stephon Castle, and that the Hornets will come down to this position here and possibly either draft this guy or Dalton Connect from Tennessee, because apparently the Hornets have worked him out a couple times. But this guy's 6'7". He's a defensive stopper with upside to be a downhill attacking scorer and a slasher. So he's got a lot of athleticism, got that dog in him, he's got hustle, and has on-ball defense. So he's got a real nice, well-rounded game, and apparently has been kind of getting better and better in the G League this year. So what are your thoughts about Memphis with this guy?
I think a little bit of a project, but a nice pick for the future. Within a year, he'll probably start making an impact.
Mm-hmm.
He's got the size that you're looking for. And I can't have enough hustle dog players
Hustle
on my
guys.
team.
Me too.
I want guys that eat, breathe, sleep winning. And if you have that as a culture, even people that don't feel that kind of gravitate towards it and become more of that than they would naturally on their own. So guys like this can become leaders, quiet leaders on your team without the captain, position or anything like that.
Did you notice the body style? He's 6'6.5", 6'7", right? So you're talking about like DeAndre Hunter, you're talking about Stephon Castle, you're talking about these kind of guys, even Jason Tatum, who's 6'5". These guys who are like between 6'5" and 6'9" wings. I mean, that is the NBA now and future, I think. That's the prototypical body style.
Mm-hmm.
Scores 15 a game is pretty good. His three-point shooting is a little bit low. I think he's going to have to work on that to have a sustainable career.
He's a project.
For sure.
But he's a good project. He's the kind of guy that you're going to see progress quickly and probably has some really good nights in the G League or on the bench, but just slowly learning from the guys in front of him. And he'll be relevant soon.
One thing I like about him on offense, he's an explosive finisher at the basket, but I love this line. He can hang in the air and score through contact, which, and he's a foul magnet. So that that can be a really big asset. If you're not a good three-point shooter, then go to the rack,
Yeah.
So we got number 10, Dalton Connect. This is the guy the Hornets apparently are targeting if they don't take Stephon Castle earlier. But the Jazz could get him at number 10. And, of course, we saw the incredible run he had last year in the NCAA tournament. Incredible scorer, incredible distributor, hustle, 50-50 balls. And you can see some of his big assets here. Movement shooter, pull-up threat, clutch gene, which means that whenever they need a shot, he makes it. And then off-ball defense. And he's a dynamic knockdown three-point shooter from deep ranges. He can also readjust in midair to fire accurately coming off screens. So what do you think about Dalton Connect?
He was one of my favorite players to watch last year in college. And I think he's a finished product, ready to go. I think he could be on the floor on day one. I don't know about the comparables. I think maybe there could be some other ones, but I think he's got the athleticism to hang in there, and I think he's got the skills that are off the just eye-popping, shooting and scoring and playmaking and everything. He's ready. I would take him over some of those guys earlier that are projects. Those guys might end up having better careers over time.
You know what's interesting about him?
Somebody right now, Detroit should take him. You know what I mean?
In our last episode, we talked about NIL and pay to play. And your point there was you're not sure that these guys coming out of college in basketball or football are going to really want it, really work for it, because they're coming out multimillionaires already. Yeah. Well, this guy is almost 24. Okay. He spent 2 years in Division II. He wasn't recruited at all out of high school. Like nobody wanted him. he goes to Tennessee and plays 2 seasons at Tennessee and becomes one of the top 3 players in college basketball. And he's worked his butt off ever since he got to Tennessee. And so I just love his story. I love the fact that this kid's had to work all the way up. He's got a chip on his shoulder. He feels like nobody thinks he's good. I just love that kind of player. I don't know about you, but
In other words, he's arriving at the NBA hungry and not a
hungry,
multimillionaire who doesn't want to hear from his coach.
super hungry.
He's
Yeah.
hungry and wants to prove that he can do it on the next level, and he's willing to work for it. He's probably willing to sit on the bench for a while and not
Mhm.
sulk. I would pick him over some of those projects that we talked about earlier.
That's what I'm
Not that
saying.
they're bad picks, but I would pick them lower.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't you feel like he could have the kind of season that Malcolm Brogdon did his rookie year, where he just came out of nowhere?
There's
He
a
was
lot of
drafted
examples.
second round. Yeah.
There's a lot of examples of some rookies that come out, and then there's a lot of busts, where you're praying somebody's ready and they're really not, and you're forcing them into roles they're not ready for, and they're a little too good for the G League, but not quite. You know what I mean? It gets tricky. I think in his case, his age allows him to walk in and really learn quickly.
Yeah. But also just that, that path he had to get to the NBA draft, even to be able to be drafted in the top 10. It's really a remarkable story. Kid wasn't even wanted out of high school. So,
No, I know. He's hungry.
yeah, that's right. Let's go to number 11. We got Rob Dillingham. He was also a freshman at Kentucky last year, came out after 1 year. He's a 6'1" guard, so he's a little bit undersized, but he is a bucket getter. Apparently, he was the guy last year. Anytime they needed a bucket, he was the go-to guy for Kentucky. And he could have gone a lot higher than this. Apparently, a lot of the scouts really liked him in kind of the 5 or 4 range. And the reason that he dropped is because of the concerns about his height. In terms of his real assets here, ball handling, obviously really great on the handle, pull-up threat, float game, movement shooter. He's really a dynamic shot creator and a facilitator for others. So really a great point guard prospect. What do you think of this guy, Dillingham?
I think this is about the right spot for him. I think he could potentially really have big nights in the NBA. He's joining a team that has good guard play already.
Yeah.
I think, in theory, if they pick him, 6'1's a little concerning, but it's not the end of the world. There's ways that you can get value out of a smaller player. It's not really the wave of the future that they're looking at, but smaller guards who can really do some of the other things can make it work. I think he's a good pick here at 11.
You notice they talked about that Kobe White they already have in Chicago, but that he needs a backcourt partner. And so they're thinking about what a dynamic duo this would be with Kobe White and Dillingham filling out the backcourt. It'd be a pretty good team.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's a pretty good pick for them. I think that's a pretty good team for him to be going to. He's young. He's got a long way to go to mature up. So
they wouldn't even really need to start him right away. They could let him kind of ease into the starting role.
Yeah, he's 164. I mean, he needs about 25 pounds.
Yeah, agreed. Drained half his catch and shoot threes this season, so he's a really good shooter. I mean, he's not one of these brickers who needs to work on his shot. He's already a good shooter. Let's talk about number 12. This is one of your favorite guys. You think this is way too low for Zach?
Way too low.
Purdue. He's 22, going on 23. He stayed all 4 years at Purdue. He worked his way up, and every single year got better. Really, his junior year and last year was, considered in the top 2 players in all of college basketball. Massive center with skill set that has transformed him from a fringe draft prospect a couple of years ago to now a lottery pick. You can see some of his, primary skills, the human highlight reel, which really is true. He's just fascinating and amazing to watch. You just can't keep your eyes off him. 7'4" tall, interior scoring, almost unstoppable, and then obviously post presence. Not much of a three-point shooter, although he can shoot it occasionally, but more of kind of an interior scorer inside 15 feet, almost unstoppable. What is your thought about Edey?
One of my favorite players in this draft. I think he is ready to go, except for his three-point shooting. I think he's mature. He is huge. He's got a 7'11" wingspan.
Just think about that, Robbie.
I mean, who can he not defend if he can find a way to get his feet a little quicker? He doesn't have to be in perfect position to block out the sun if somebody goes in the lane. I mean, he's incredible in the post. He's the best post scorer in this draft. I think that has a lot of value because it's kind of a unicorn. There's so few of them who are superior post players. I think he should be a top 3 pick, in my opinion.
Yeah, or at least top 5. I think if he goes to the Thunder, he might be happy he dropped this far because they have got a really good team.
Yeah,
they
I
easily
agree.
could have won the West, and you add a premier center to that team that didn't really have a good center.
Oh, it'll be a nice situation for him.
It's a really good situation for him. I don't know why you wouldn't like this.
And it's also nice because it's kind of a small market. It's not too much glitz and glam. He can just grow and learn.
And he's very understated. He's kind of quiet.
Yeah.
He doesn't like to talk to the press too much.
But he's got a little bit of meanness to him that I like.
He does. He's got some dog in him. I don't know why they don't have that here. The dog in him, but he does have it.
Yeah, he should have dog as a little symbol there.
They've got him compared to Valanciunas and Zubac, who are 2 of the big
better
centers.
Than those guys. He's better.
I think he's better too. His minuses are limited defender when pulled away from the basket and struggles to recover on pick and pops. So
he's an incredible rebounder.
And you know what? If you watched his game last year, those were the 2 areas I saw right away that he was limited. Like Klingon is better than him as a defender, there's no doubt. And I think Edey is a better, well-rounded offensive player. So
offense and rebounding, those 2 categories, he was off the chart.
They're both very good rebounders, but yeah, I think
but Edey led the country.
If you want a defensive stopper, shot blocker, then your guy is Klingon. And if you want a guy who's a dynamic scorer, then this is your guy. So,
but a guy who has a 7'11" wingspan is going to block a lot of shots.
Yeah, he is, for sure.
Man.
For sure. Number 13, we got Nikola Topic. This is a guy who they're actually they're starting to compare to Doncic or Goran Dragic. These are guys who are sitting at 6'6", 6'7", can play the wing, can play the 2, can play the 3. Also from Serbia, by the way, and currently plays in the Serbian Pro League. Excellent, crafty shooter. Does the Euro step a lot, so he's really good around the rim. They've got him going number 13 to the Sacramento Kings. And you can see here, just great feel for the game. As you mentioned earlier in the program, all these European players just are so skillful. They're so good at ball handling, so good at passing, can get the little Euro step layups. Just going to be an excellent player, this guy Topic. What is your thought here?
Serbian players, they're ready to go. They come in men. I think it's a good pick for Sacramento. I think expectations will be managed well.
One reason I think he dropped to 13, even though he's wildly talented, is because he's only 19. Yeah. Actually, I don't think he's even turned 19 yet. And so
he needs to fill out some.
He's a little bit of a project. He's got all the talent in the world. He feels like a Doncic, a year or 2 into his career.
Yeah.
He needs some development. He needs some seasoning. But I think he's going to be a heck of a player.
Yeah.
Topic.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a look at number 14, Tidjane Saloun. So we're talking another French product. Pretty amazing that the projected top 25 has 6 French players in it. So this guy is incredibly raw, as it says here. He's 6'9", 200 pounds, has been playing in the French League, LNB Pro A. Young talent with raw qualities, off-ball defense, positional versatility. He could play the 2 or the 3 or the 4. He's also a really good hustler in the French League. Isn't even 19 yet. You can see here he's a locked-in defender who's really a nuisance off the ball. But clearly he's going to be a project, right? So he's going to have to probably go to the G League or maybe sit on the bench for a year or 2 before he gets any playing time. They've got him compared to Aaron Gordon and Chandler Parsons, who are 2 really good players. What are your thoughts about somebody this raw?
Got to go to the right situation for development, and you could become a huge star. But I think if they mishandle him, maybe he'll never reach the potential. I think it's pretty good. 14, a lot of potential. Really has potential star written all over him. So I like him.
They've got a good little note here that the Blazers can afford to be patient because they have some other forwards at this position that are either already established or coming up, and so this is just a depth play from my perspective. They
That's
can bring
perfect.
this.
And
They
then
can
by the
bring
time
this guy
he's
along.
ready,
Yeah,
you trade those guys and you get as much value for him as you can. And you move him in and hopefully get some
you
picks out of it.
you don't have to start him right away. You can play him in the
Yeah.
G League for a while, get him some seasoning. Yeah, it really is a nice depth pick for Portland. All these guys are prototypical players coming out of France. So we got number 15. You know this name out of the NCAA tournament. He made a big name for himself. Tyler Kolek from Marquette. He was the senior leader for that team. They went really deep in the tournament. They got shades of Jalen Brunson, who had an amazing season this past year, and Goran Dragic. His stock has actually risen more than anybody else's in this draft process the last couple months. Apparently, a bunch of teams have worked him out. Apparently Miami had the best workout with him and actually brought him in a second time. And they said that it'd be a really nice two-man chemistry with him and Bam Adebayo. They see him getting a lot of assists at the rim to Bam. So you can see some of his real attributes that are great here. Clutch gene, floor general, crafty finisher, catch and shoot threat. He's really got it all. He's a very well-rounded point guard / two guard. Any thoughts about Kolek?
I'd be very excited if my Miami Heat got a leader like that. Obviously, his height is limiting, but I think his attributes are fantastic on a team that already has some talented players and has a lot of scrappiness, and their coach is scrappy. Clutch gene, floor general, you want players like that. That's just screams leader.
And did you
So,
notice that the last couple of years they've been bringing kind of rent to players in at point guard? They did this past year too, where they're bringing a guy in for a year here, a year there towards the end of their career. They need a young point guard they can develop and bring up as a star.
mhm.
So this really is the position they need the most. They need a facilitator. They need a scrapper. They need a floor general. And this is their guy. It'll be interesting to watch him develop. We'll see. Coming down to number 16, this is Tristan. Sorry, go ahead.
Spoelstra will get a lot out of him, I think.
He will, I agree. Number 16, we got Tristan Da Silva from Colorado, another Colorado player. He's a senior, 23 years old. One of the safer bets to find success in the NBA because of his two-way abilities. And this is what coaches are really looking for. You and I talked about this, guys who can score and play defense. And this guy definitely can. He's a spacer. He has positional versatility at 6'9", feel for the game, off-ball defense, can score, is a three-point shooter, 40% three-point shooter, and is a rim finisher as well, can slash. So what are your thoughts about this guy, Da Silva, going to the 76ers?
It's a great pick. He probably should be going a little higher, to be honest. He's more of a finished product.
I would agree. This is what, if we were old school coaches and we were drafting, this is the kind of guy you would want.
Yeah.
In the old days, you wanted a guy coming out of college who had 3 or 4 years because they were a finished product. They had worked on their shot. They worked on their defense. They had been through the mill that it takes to get through a college season 4 times. So, yeah, this is kind of, it feels like an old school player in some ways, rather than the developmental guys that come out at the top of the draft. Be really interesting to watch this guy, Da Silva. I'm excited to see him play. Number 17, they got Khalil Ware from Indiana. He played 2 seasons with the Hoosiers. He's 6'11.8", so he's basically 7 feet tall, 230 pounds. He is a rim protector. He's a lob threat. He's in the mold of like a Derek Lively, who we just saw with the Mavericks, who really came on this season. He actually can shoot the three. He's very athletic. He's a shot blocker and can interior scorer. He's potentially even a dunk contest worthy athlete with phenomenal size and length. So one of the first Americans I've seen in a while who has that kind of prototypical 7-foot athletic, can shoot, almost European style.
Mm-hmm.
And they're saying the Lakers are going to take.
But he's
take
a little on the more athletic side, you know.
Yeah, no, that's right.
But
I mean,
he's kind of
he shoots
perfect
threes.
project.
He is. He's 20 years old. He's got 2 full college seasons. They can develop him. They can bring him along with AD and LeBron and Austin Reeves. So I really like this pick. I think they're thinking the Lakers are going to take him first round and then take Bronny James, LeBron's son, in the second round.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of the thinking right now for the Lakers. I don't think they can justify taking Bronny in the first round at this point.
Mm-mm.
So he's really prototypical. It's interesting to see an American player in that kind of European mold. Next guy, number 18, we saw this guy, unfortunately, beat Virginia this past year, our team, Jared McCain. Really solid player. He's a shot maker, playmaker, dream fit for Orlando's existing core pieces that they have right now. He's really one of the big sharpshooters coming out this year. He's 6'2", 14.3 points per game in a team at Duke that had to share the ball across 5 players. Was actually their biggest clutch player in the NCAA tournament this year. And he's both a pull-up threat and a catch-and-shoot threat. Has tremendous feel for the game. You can see here launches jumpers off the dribble, and his comfort with all ranges on the court. What are your thoughts about McCain?
I mean, he's a great player. I think getting a good, solid ball handler that you can have for the next foreseeable future helps your team kind of put together the pieces you need. And I think he showed a lot in college. So on a team full of stars. So I think he's a good pick.
This is interesting. They said he's somewhere in between Steph and Seth Curry, which is interesting. He's like a combination between the two brothers. Because he's both a playmaker, a point guard, but he's also really a great scorer, which a lot of point guards are not. So he's a clutch guy you can go to for a big shot. Which, of course, why wouldn't you want in the NBA to have all 5 positions be great scorers? I mean, that's really what you want.
You need to, yeah.
These guys they're scoring 130 points a game, a lot of teams. So yeah, I think he's going to be a really excellent pick for the Magic. Number 19, Jacoby Walter from Baylor. Only played 1 season. He's 19. He's a 6'4" combo guard. Can play 1 or the 2. Assertive scorer with silky shooting stroke. The movement shooter, pull-up threat, on-ball defense. Got that dog in him. They're saying the Raptors are going to take this guy at number 19. That he's just a solid combo guard. What are your thoughts?
I think he would be an excellent pick. He's a 6'4", is pretty prototypical guard these days. He's got all the skills. He's not going to need a lot of development, I don't think. He's pretty ready.
Yeah, I think so too. Got a 6'10" wingspan. I thought that was really interesting. A 6'4" guard with a 6'10" wingspan.
Yeah, he's got
But
long
he probably have real active hands, you know. Create a lot of steals and things like that. Says he's a dynamic perimeter shooter, thrives off screens and handoffs, and can use hesitations to get pull-ups and side steps. So he's a real smooth player. It'd be interesting to watch. I think the Toronto Raptors will get a good one here.
Mm-hmm.
Number 20, we got Bub. Number 20, we got Bub Carrington. Number 20, we got Bub Carrington from Pittsburgh, freshman, going to Cleveland Cavaliers. And this is a guard who's almost 6'4", a bucket-getting guard with size. Essentially, he can pull up and make the jump shot. He can also go to the rack. He's also a playmaker and a distributor. Filthy mid-range scorer, has good handle, tight crossover, and athleticism to decelerate and pull up with ease. Makes absurd shots like gorgeous step back, off balance, contested fadeaways. So he's going to be a lot of fun to watch, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting, though, that they would be interested in him because, of course, they got Donovan Mitchell already. They have a couple of other guards. I wonder if they're just thinking about plugging this guy right into point guard and adding to the
Also
shooting.
depth. There's so
And
much injuries throughout the NBA.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, probably so.
Yeah.
Interesting to watch. Cleveland's kind of coming on. I've been impressed with them the last couple of years. Got some good players.
Yeah.
You might give them some depth, like you said. Number 21, Yves Missy from Baylor, also a freshman. So it looks like Baylor's losing a couple of their really good players. They have him going to New Orleans to join Zion. Missy would become everything the Pelicans had hoped they were getting when they drafted Jackson Hayes last year. He's an active rim protector, a vertical threat. And with Jonas Valanciunas' unlikely return, there's a clear need for a center. And this guy's at 6'11". So they're thinking he's going to be the heir apparent at center for New Orleans, whereas they play Zion at power forward. He's a lob threat, a shot blocker, a rebounder, a hustler, and a high-flying dunker and rim protector. What are your thoughts about this guy coming in and joining Zion at New Orleans?
It's a pretty good pick, I mean, he's got a lot of pieces you're looking for. He's young. A lot of those knees are young enough, I would imagine. And he can really do a lot of athletic things. That'd be a scary team to try to defend.
You really will. Look at
Athletes,
this guy.
huge athletes that can score and jump out of the gym and all that stuff.
Look at this guy's guns.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to
Physical
defend him. Yeah, all these 6'11", 7-foot guys coming into the NBA who are athletic and not statues like they used to be.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty astounding. Be interesting to watch this guy play. Number 22, we got Isaiah Collier from USC. He actually played with Bronny James last year. They say the Phoenix Suns are targeting him. This would be a great landing spot for Collier. Even though ending up there would necessitate falling in the draft, Collier downhill attacking ability would flourish alongside Phoenix's spacing. So they think this is a really good spot for him. He's a 6'3" point guard, dynamic point guard. He's built like a tank. He's one of those really solid guys, like a Jalen Brunson type. They say he's a human highlight reel, and he's built like a tank. Really good ball handler, strong frame, can play with finesse or play bully ball. Covers a lot of ground with long strides, speedy maneuvers. He actually likes to run and gun a lot, and apparently USC did a lot of that last year. A lot of running and gunning and showtime kind of action. What are your thoughts about Collier?
His physique. Does he look 19 to you? 19 years old?
No.
I mean, phew.
How would you like to guard that, Robbie?
He's like in high school last year. What is
like
that?
A tank. No, he played for USC last year.
No, I mean year before that.
A year ago, yeah.
I mean, who's guarding that? I don't know.
Smart.
He's got a lot of great attributes. He's physical. It's a nice pick.
You could have him. You could have him at point guard. You have Devin Booker at the 2. You have Kevin Durant at the 3.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. That's shaping up to be a pretty good team.
Yeah.
They're pretty solid. We'll see. I'm looking forward to seeing him play. Go down to 23. We got Bobby Klintman. He's Swedish, and he plays at this pro league over in Europe, I guess it is. He'd be a fascinating choice for the Bucks because his spot-up shooting and defensive versatility. Essentially, he could work with Giannis and Brook Lopez and learn from those two guys and get more experience. Or they could just replace Lopez with Bobby Portis and play a little bit smaller. So they can go big lineup or small lineup and plug this guy in both. Bobby Klintman. He's a 6'9" wing or small forward. So what are your thoughts about this guy? He's very versatile, can play solid defense, can score, gives you a lot of length.
I mean, he can shoot the 3. He's a two-way wing. I think he's versatile. I think he's a nice pick. especially if you're going to have a project, have somebody that you can use in a bunch of different ways.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
So when you have injuries, you can utilize their skills.
So you could put Giannis at the 5, Klintman at the 4, this guy, and then you'd have Chris Middleton at the 3, correct?
Yeah.
The way you look at it. And then Brook
They're-
Lopez either coming off the bench, or you can maybe even let Brook Lopez go potentially.
No, just keep him for depth.
Yeah. Okay, that's true. That's true.
Yeah. These guys, they sit a lot.
So they have shades of Trevor Ariza and Nick Batum. So, I mean, can you ever have too many of these types of 6'9" guys in the NBA? I don't think so.
It's perfect.
Yeah. This is the kind of guy you want. All right, so number 24, we got Johnny Furphy from Kansas. He's a freshman, 19 years old, one of the biggest risers in the pre-draft process. He's very raw, but he's worthy of a project for the Knicks. He's a skilled shooter with upside, shoots a pretty good percentage from 3. Didn't get a whole lot of opportunity last year, actually, compared to what his recruiting level was. He was a 5-star recruit. Kansas was so loaded that they had to distribute the ball to a lot of different people. He's a catch-and-shoot threat and an off-ball mover, and would fit really well into a nice system, which, of course, the Knicks already have. Furphy has elite awareness for finding open space off the ball. He's a good catch-and-shoot guy, as we mentioned, and can shoot the threes. What are your thoughts about this guy as a project?
I think he's a project. I mean, I know I've said that a few other times, but this guy might be the biggest project of them all. It seems like he's just not quite ready for this role, but that's okay because he's going to a team that doesn't need him right away. So I think this is a great fit for him. He can just go there and learn and come along nicely, put on a little weight, and learn from the guys that are there, and get used to the big lights, Madison Square Garden, and then kind of next year or two check back in. He'll be a pivotal player most likely.
I noticed he's really skinny, 189 pounds, and he's 6'8".
Yeah, he's too light for the NBA right now.
So I wonder if
I don't want to diminish his skills, though. He's got skills.
Wonder if he could play in the G League for a year and really get in the weight room. Essentially, he needs to beef up. Yeah, he's a project for sure. Our next guy you know very well from our Virginia Cavaliers is Ryan Dunn, number 25. They think he's also going to the Knicks. The Knicks have worked him out twice already. He's a 6'7" forward/guard, 21 years old, played a couple of years at Virginia. He was a walk-on, believe it or not. They are now ranking him the best defender in the entire first round. He's a player who can lock down multiple positions, both guards and small forwards. Proven ability. And they think that this is the right system for him because he's not going to be asked to score a lot when he first comes. They're essentially going to make him kind of defense, rebound, shot blocking type specialist. And that he'd be a really good cutter and screener for Jalen Brunson. So he's going to be a really good kind of off the ball screener and contributor for Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle. So in terms of the way they have him ranked, that he's a hustler, he's got that dog in him, on-ball defense and interior scoring. Of course, his jump shot needs a lot of work, and we know that. He's very raw on the jump shot side. What are your thoughts about our boy Ryan?
Well, I think he has a lot of pieces that you can use right away: defense, rebounding, hustle, team first guy, high IQ, really, really athletic. But basketball skills wise, he needs some work. But I think he wouldn't hurt you being out there because he could play defense and he could really help the guys that are out there. He can clean up offensive rebounds. He can get scrappy defensive rebounds. I think he wouldn't be relied on to score very much, which would be great because his team is already good in that department. So this is a perfect case where Ryan Dunn could be a total bust going to the wrong situation, but I think going to the Knicks would be a perfect situation for him. So
I agree with you. You know what I loved about watching about him at Virginia? What I loved watching him was He was always hustling. He was always on the ground after 50-50 balls. He was active hands. He was causing turnovers. He was shot blocking against the rim. He just was all over the place, and so a lot of that was making up for his lack of raw skills that he's got when it comes to shooting.
I think he
So,
was the best help defender in college basketball.
yeah, that's right.
When somebody would get by, a guard would get by, or somebody would get by, he would come over and shut down the attack or block the shot.
That's right.
He was altering people's attack, and so that has a lot of value. I mean,
Think it.
to me, he's Dennis Rodman with um, potential to learn more offensive skills than Rodman.
And they need a wing stopper. They need that at the Knicks. That was one of the analysis they did after the playoffs.
Yeah,
They need a guy who they can put in for stretches on their number three on the other side and
yeah,
shut him
that's
down.
what they need. They need defender,
Mm.
rebound, somebody who can do picks, protect rim
I'm,
on defense.
I'm excited to see him play this year. I really am. It's gonna be fun to
Yeah,
watch. We got Kaishan George from Miami, who's a freshman from the Canes, 6'7". Again, that perfect sweet spot for the NBA. 20 years old, almost 21. He was a standout in Miami, turned himself into a surprising one and done, which nobody saw coming. Because of his size, he could end up being a great backcourt addition for Washington. This is their second round in the first round. I'm sorry, this is their second pick in the first round. And you can see here some of his attributes that they like is he's a pull-up threat and has positional versatility. Really good shooter, excellent defender. Was shooting 36.4% of his pull-up threes. So he's kind of the prototypical guy you'd want in the NBA as a role player. Any thoughts about this guy?
I mean, I think he's a good player, the kind of role player that Washington would like to put into their ranks. I think he's a good shooter and versatile player. So I think that gives you more opportunities to get on the floor. So I think it's a good pick.
40%
It's
from
not like a
three.
sizzling pick, but I think it's a nice, steady, good pick where you,
Yeah.
you kind of can't miss.
Yeah, low end of the first round, it's
Yeah.
pretty appropriate, I think. 40% from three. I mean, he's got some real potential, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
Washington, if they get these two guys Washington's going to get, that's a pretty good draft.
Yeah.
All right, last couple here. We got KJ Simpson from Colorado, a junior. So Colorado has three guys in the first round. I didn't even think of Colorado as a basketball school last year, so it's pretty amazing. With Mike Conley turning 37 next season, already has durability issues. They're thinking KJ Simpson will come in and be the perfect guard to bring along as a backup and then possible future starter. He's just under 6'1", so he's a little bit undersized as a point guard, but they're thinking that, again, he could take over from Mike Conley, who's in the downside of his career. He's a small guard with the it factor. He's got the clutch gene, often makes the clutch layup or the clutch shot at the right time. Movement shooter, crafty finisher, off-ball mover. He's also a really good distributor and makes his teammates better. Finishes at the rim, but also can pass at the rim. So, has a lot of those attributes you like to see from an NBA point guard. Has a really high scoring average and three-point shooting average. Thoughts about this kid, Simpson, with the Timberwolves?
I like how it said spicy shot maker.
Yeah.
I think the more spicy players you have that are dynamic when they have the ball, the more competitive your team is, and the better your depth is, and so it's a good pick.
I mean,
As a
they
junior,
were knocking on they were knocking on the door of the NBA Finals, right? And winning
yeah,
a championship. They're really close to winning a championship. So the fact that they've got a point guard who's 37, almost 38, and who's starting to break down, they got to think about the future.
yeah, I feel like they used everything they had to get as far as they did, and they ran out of gas. They needed a couple of young players who could pick them up and really kind of keep it going, I think. So this would be a nice little start. Get this guy, and
Mm-hmm.
KJ Simpson could help them, I think.
Mm-hmm. I'll be really interested to watch all these players as they develop over the next year or two. 28, we got the Denver Nuggets taking Deron Holmes, who's a center. I found it surprising he was a center because he's only 6'9". But he's kind of a throwback big who can block shots and finish lobs at the rim. He's a shot blocking guy. He's an interior scoring guy. He's a hustle guy. He can set picks. He's really good with floor spacing. His three-point shooting is actually pretty good. It's almost 40%. So he's not a center who can't shoot. He actually can shoot the three.
I think he should be a 4 in the NBA.
I think he should be a 4 in the NBA too. But they have him pegged at center for the Denver Nuggets. I don't know if that's because they want Jokic to be able to play the 4. I don't know. But interesting player. What are your thoughts about him joining the Nuggets?
I'm not sure that's the right team for him, but he seems like he has a lot of attributes that you'd want. Good player, tall, can play defense, interior scoring, a nice inside presence.
The fact that he's 6'9", 6'10", something like that, and is such a great shot blocker, that tells me he's probably got really good timing.
And they were talking about how he can jump out of the gym. So
That's right. Yeah. A lot of rebounds too, almost 10 rebounds a game. I think he's a solid pick. I can see why they take him. Number 29, Tyler Smith, coming out of the G League. This is the Utah Jazz. Smith's 3-and-D upside and his 6'9" forward would fit on any team in the NBA. And the Jazz already have a bunch of wings and forwards, but they shouldn't stop accumulating them, is what they say here. So he's really versatile. He's a spacer. He's a depth guy. He's one of those guys who can score, who can play defense, who can rebound, shot block, do picks for his guards. He can actually hit face-up jumpers by shooting over defenders. It's a really good skill there. So good weapon in the two-man game. Multi-position defender. What are your thoughts about Tyler Smith?
He's got some nice experience, even though he's only 19 in the G League. I think he'd be perfect on just about any team. I think they said it right. 6'9" forward, that's perfect. Athletic, good spacer, good body type, frame.
Mm-hmm.
He can rebound, play defense, score some. But I don't think he needs to be the high scorer every night kind of thing. So a good player to add to your team for sure.
No doubt about it. Depth guy, for sure. You got Terrence Shannon from Illinois. He's a senior. Downhill scorer, off-ball defense. Really excellent skilled scorer. Can score at the rim, can shoot three-pointers. He was their vocal leader last year for Illinois. They actually had a pretty good season. 23 points a game. Boston Celtics would just add another piece to an already great backcourt. And as you can see, he'd be a 6'6" wing for them. So he's kind of in that perfect sweet spot again that NBA teams love. Any thoughts on Shannon?
I mean, he's kind of a perfect pick. I mean, 23 points a game, significant. And all the comps that they have him with are defensive related. On a team that values defense, him going to Boston is perfect.
It really is. Agreed. They get a really good player with Shannon. Coming down to 31, you know this guy very well, Mr. Kyle Filipowski from Duke, falling all the way to 31, which is really shocking. A couple of years ago, you would have thought he'd be in the top 10 at least. They have him falling to the Toronto Raptors. They got Kelly Olynyk before the trade deadline, but he's 33 years old and under contract for only 2 more years. So they need a playmaking big, a guy who can pass, a guy who can score, a guy who can stretch the floor. He has finesse. He has ball handling, feel for the game, got that dog in him. There are a lot of things I loved about Filipowski. I'm really glad he's graduating and leaving Duke because he used to kill us at Virginia. Yep. But he's almost 6'11", shoots 34% from 3, and can really kind of do it all. What's your thought about Filipowski dropping this low?
He's a good value at this pick, I'll tell you that. He's a very good player, has tremendous upside potential. So he's not we haven't seen the best of his days, I think. He's going to keep getting better. He didn't have a great season last year. That hurt his draft stock. That means somebody's getting a good value, because I don't think there's a tremendously good reason why he had a down year. It just worked out that way. He's still a force. I think he's still growing physically. He needs to put on a little more weight, a little more muscle to play center. But I think he showed so much promise as a freshman that doesn't just go away.
You
I
think he'll
think
have
he
a
would
little
be
bit? Think he'll have a little bit of the Tom Brady syndrome, where he drops so far down that he's got a chip on his shoulder his whole career, and kind of like
maybe.
everyone disrespected me, and I should have been a top 10 pick. And,
I don't know about that. I think
no,
he's going to feel like he needs to prove it, not in an angry way, but just they were doubting me, so let me go to work. Smart player, extremely talented, 6'11" wingspan. So, good shot blocker and he's tenacious. A little bit of crazy antics with the bad temper.
a little
He had
bit.
a tripping incident where he tripped a player,
The
and
court storming
the court
incident.
storming where he tripped a fan and then said that the fan attacked him. I don't love all that, but it's Duke. So,
Yeah.
but not to go too far into that, but Duke seems to have some players like this sometimes. So,
I think
but I like him. I have him on my team.
his first year when he played so well and was kind of, exploded onto the scene, I said it that year that I don't think I'd ever seen a center in college basketball pass better than this guy. I mean, he passes like a point guard.
Yeah.
He's
got
an
good
amazing
vision.
distributor. Yeah, so I just, from that perspective alone, I think he's going to develop and develop. He'll be a better scorer, be a better passer.
Well, he's
He's
kind of the
almost like
whole
a
package
point center.
already, but he's going to get better. So
He started bringing the ball up a little bit, like
31. I wouldn't be surprised to see him go a little higher, to be honest.
you think so?
Maybe not a lot higher, but a little bit.
He started bringing the ball up a little bit, like Jokic, and
Yeah.
it's kind of pretty cool to see. Point
Yeah.
center. All right, last guy on our board, number 32. We got Harrison Ingram from North Carolina, a junior, coming out of that program. You're talking about a 6'6" forward. Got a really big wingspan of 7 feet. Good scorer, solid three-point shooter, playmaking forward. Similar to Filipowski at the center position, he really kind of makes everybody else better. He's a really great passer. Excellent rebounder, has a good feel for the game. As you can see here, seasoned playmaker. He plays like a veteran. They think he's going to come in right away and contribute. Has good fluidity, good accuracy in his passes. Coming into the Jazz picking 4 times within the last 4 picks of the first round. What are your thoughts about Mr. Ingram?
I think physically he's ready for the NBA. I think anytime you come out of Carolina, you've been in a program that operates a lot like a pro league, high level, signing autographs. Nothing's going to phase you. So he'll be able to handle the transition well. I think his versatility is great. You can use him in a bunch of different ways. He's 6'6", but I feel like with his size, he's 7-foot wingspan. He's just bigger than his height. So I think he's valuable. I think he's a good player, comes from a good pedigree, and he can quietly help the Utah Jazz get better.
Agreed. Definitely a good depth pick at first because they've got a lot of good players in that team. But yeah, I think he's going to come along. He'll be a real excellent player as he goes. Can shoot, can play defense, can play make, can rebound. Everything you like to see in a player.
Play multiple positions.
Well, Robbie, that's our review of the first round of NBA. It starts tomorrow night. It's going to be really interesting to see. Rooting for Ryan Dunn to go to that situation. Rooting for all the players, especially from the ACC, but really all the players to have a great run next year. I think the NBA is getting better, stronger, faster. We got all these amazing athletes coming in that are, 7 feet, 6'11", and yet they can shoot. They're not statues anymore. They can run the floor. They can shot block, and yet they can also play like point guards. So it's really, I think it's a cool era of basketball that we're entering. I think the big man is back, and it's just a little bit different than it used to be.
Mm-hmm.
Any thoughts?
I'd like to say congrats to the Florida Panthers on their Stanley Cup win last night.
Nice
That
job.
was a very exciting series. And if you go back to our podcast, we got that one right. Game 7, we called Florida
We
would
did.
win.
Yep.
That was very exciting. I think the goalies came up huge last night, like I thought they would all series, and they didn't do it all series, but they did last night.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a very exciting Stanley Cup. I think the NBA Finals wasn't quite as good. Dallas kind of was overmatched. We said that Boston would win in 6. They won in 5. So,
but we essentially got both series right, because our reasoning for why Celtics were going to win is because they were so deep. They had four wings. They had 4 defensive
all
wings.
guards. Yeah.
And they had a lot more scorers.
Those two series to me were a lot more entertaining than maybe you would think with the scores that the way they were.
Yeah.
I think Luka got a little exposed on his defensive challenges. I think he's got some work to do on getting his footwork tightened up. But scoring wise, he is as good as advertised. So
he's incredible. Do you think, though? I mean, he needs to not just get better on defense, but he's got to get in shape. I mean, he was sucking wind in that series, and that's a concern.
Well, they were asking him to do stuff that elite athletes can do, and he's not an elite athlete. He's an elite skill player. I think he needs a couple monster defenders to be around him that can pick up his slack so he can really concentrate on the offensive end. I think he'll get better on defense with some coaching. It was pretty clear that his defense wasn't up to par, especially against
Luka, but it was clear he was overmatched. And the other thing about Kyrie Irving, of course, he's been a really good player for a long time, but not only do I think he's a little bit over the hill now, I think he's starting on his decline, but secondly, to have a 6'1" guy like that, that's not the prototypical guard in the NBA anymore.
No, not anymore.
No, the reason K.A. Clark, our guy from Virginia, the reason he's playing over in Europe is you can't be a 5'8" guard in the NBA. It just doesn't work.
Those tall, athletic Boston guards, they could just keep throwing them at Kyrie, and Kyrie was overmatched. So anyway, my point is that the NBA, even though it was a pretty quick series, I think we got to really see the best team win it all. And I think the Boston future is very bright. I think teams are going to have to catch Boston, which means that, as long as they can keep the core together, teams are going to have to get better if they're going to even have a shot. So the best news is that I think this draft is a very good draft.
It was a good draft.
And so I think a lot of teams are going to be improved by the players they're going to be picking. And I think that a lot of teams can keep building. Like, there's a lot of teams that were good this year but not great. They might be great next year.
Did you notice that if you look down through this draft, did you notice what these teams are trying to do? They're trying to be Boston. They're trying to draft big wings like Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Yep. They're trying to get centers like Porzingis and Al Horford. They're trying to get solid rebounding and defensive playing forwards. They're trying to get themselves an excellent point guard.
They want a Drew Holiday running around like his hair's on fire.
It's a copycat league, just like it is in the NHL and NFL. Yeah. I mean, all these leagues copycat.
If you notice, the teams that are going away from a little bit the 2 and 3 star thing, they want a team full of talent. Instead of trading away all your talent so you can get a LeBron James, teams are more likely to trade their star to get 3 great players and have a really deep team that can just throw talented players at you and wear you out.
Mm-hmm.
And so I do think there's been a little bit of a shift, not only away from just bombing threes on every single shot, but also the big 3 myth of that's how you win a championship. I think it's kind of slowly going away. So
what did we see in the Final Four in the NCAA? We saw 4 teams that could play inside outside. Okay, and that's what our team, Virginia, needs to learn how to do, and that's what all teams in the NCAA need to do. They need to have an inside presence, and they need to have outside. What are the NBA teams that are making long runs into the playoffs? The ones that can play inside outside. The Boston Celtics.
Yep.
And so
when Boston was So basketball is a game of runs. When Boston was bombing threes and really missing a lot of them, they didn't shoot three very well in a lot of stretches of games. They always had other options on getting back on track.
Mhm.
And that was, first of all, their defense could lock down and really slow Luka down. He looked like a great player that was not quite as great as he could be because the defense was swarming, and there wasn't much help for him.
But
So,
if they needed a bucket, the Celtics, what do? They have Jaylen Brown go to the rack. If they need a bucket, they can have Tatum go to the rack. They can have Al Horford. They can have Porzingis, who's almost unstoppable.
yeah,
So, if
Drew
they went to
Holiday,
use Drew Holiday, yeah. So they have all these guys that can go to the cup if they can't shoot that night. And
right?
you have to be able to score both ways. You really do.
That's right. So my point was that I think there was a good series. It could have been better. I think if Luca needs a little bit of help,
He does.
um, but they played lights out, which I kind of foresaw that they just had a lot of ability to beat some teams. But I did feel like they were going to run out of gas, just like Minnesota did too.
Did you
Um,
notice? Did you notice the Mavericks didn't have a first round pick in this draft
yeah,
because they went and got Kyrie? So
yeah. So
it,
that's unfortunate
it
because they
hurts.
could
It
use
hurts.
one of these guys.
It really
So
hurts.
getting veterans is a tricky business, especially when you don't have quite enough help. You're hoping one player can help, but really basketball you need a nice little core, you
I'm
know.
really torn about my Hornets because I really would love them to take Stephon Castle. I think he'd be a fantastic point guard. He would allow LaMelo to play off ball. But if they trade to 9 with the Memphis Grizzlies, they could still get a guy who's a really great player, and they could get an extra first round pick next year. So I don't know. I'm just torn about what they really should do. I love the idea of stocking up another first rounder for next year. Next year, you end up with 2 first rounders.
I think LaMelo gets hurt. I think you take the great player now.
Stephon
Um,
Castle.
I you know how I'm a big fan usually of trading down and getting more picks, but that's really when you're rebuilding. And I do think they're rebuilding, but they have some nice pieces.
They do.
Charlotte's got some nice pieces, and LaMelo gets hurt. So if LaMelo gets hurt and you're holding this first round pick for next year, that's not going to fill your stadium.
And
That's
see
not going to
the
make
reason I would
people
take
play.
the reason I would take Stephon Castle over Klingon, even though I like Klingon as a player, is because they took Robert Williams 2 years ago from Duke, and he's coming along. And so I feel like they've got their center of the future. He's developing really nicely. He played well this year.
Yeah,
So they don't need a center right now. They need a point guard. A steady guy's there every night.
I agree. And somebody who can pick up slack when LaMelo's struggling or hurt a little bit.
And
Maybe he's not 100%, but he's trying to play.
and
Maybe you put him on the shelf and you just get through that night.
he's a 6'6" point guard who can play defense and
I
can
love it.
distribute. So he's prototypical.
Yeah. That's how you build your team right there, making those kind of decisions.
That's right.
Generally speaking, I'm a trade down guy and get picks.
Generally.
But I feel like there's times when you got to stay put.
I was reading some analysts who said that that is true in the NFL draft for sure. You always want to trade down, but they said in the NBA draft there's so few difference makers in the NBA draft every year
True.
that you just shouldn't. If you're sitting at 6, you take the guy.
True.
In the NBA.
That's right.
So,
and it doesn't take as many players to swing a team from being mediocre to good in the
right.
NBA. It takes a lot more players to become good in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
You can't add one piece and be great all of a sudden. It doesn't happen.
That's right.
If you don't have offensive linemen, if you don't have stars at various skill positions, your new quarterback is just going to struggle.
Well, guys, thank you so much for coming this evening. We're really glad you joined us for this NBA preview. We'll be watching the draft tomorrow night, see what happens. It's going to be really exciting. Please like this video and subscribe to the channel. We've got a lot of great content coming. Got another great episode coming the end of this week, and it's a surprise. So tune in for that one. And Robbie, have a great night.
Same to you.
Everybody
See
take
you,
care.
everybody.